Hello, all. Welcome back to Not Just Lessons from Our Animals. I am Emma, and we have another guest today, and I'm so excited. Lea Pickard here. You are our second guest on the podcast, and I'm so excited. So, okay, again, there's just like so many things, and so I get really wrapped up in all of them, and what to start with first. Okay, Lea is my like health and wellness go-to person. She loves research, which I love for her because I don't love to research. She is the science person. She loves to go into like the research of it all and the science and how does it work and all the things. And I say, I love that that exists and it feels right. So like, let's do it. Right. You don't have to convince me with the science. If it feels right, it is right. Although there was a time in my life that you did need to convince me with the science because I was not connected to my own inner knowing, self trusting. So I needed to be convinced that that was the right thing. So I love that it all exists and that you love it. And so I get to go to you and you can say, "Oh yeah, let me tell you all the things." And she knows about the body and all the like the natural things and also the conventional things. And so it's so great to be able to go to somebody who's like, "Yeah, let's talk about, the herb for this or the homeopathy or like let's get to the root cause of like what the thing is and not just the symptom." So there's so much, and obviously we all are so much. And what we're going to talk about today is very exciting. And I can't wait to see where we go with it. But we're going to be talking about EMFs and EMFs with our animals, which essentially is like EMS with us too. And so really thinking about what that is, how they are present in our life, how they might be affecting us, and then how we can go about mitigating them. So without further ado, Lea, without going into like the whole bio of everything, I would love to hear from you what has led you to this season of your life, of where you're at, how you're living, who you are in the world. What part, what has got you here, and however you want to answer that is absolutely perfect.
Amazing. Hi. Hi, Emma.
Hi.
I'm so honored. I'm so honored to be the second guest. As Emma said, I am Lea Pickard. I'm so happy to be here to have this conversation. As Emma knows, I am a listener of her podcast. I love it. And I love all of the conversations that we have about all of these things. So it's really fun to get to have this here
Yes.
in this format.
Everyone gets
I
to be a
think
part of our conversation that we have normally.
that's right.
Yeah.
Basically, this is like
This is
our,
our boxer thread in real life. Yeah.
10, 20, 30 minutes of audio messages a day.
Yep. 100%. You get to come
Uh,
along with us today and,
That's right. Yes.
it'll be
So
great.
I would say probably the biggest, most pivotal thing that brought me to where I am today was, and I just think it's relevant since we are going to be talking about health in particular, was being sick, was getting
Yeah.
sick. And I was in an environment that was, it turned out, had black mold. But I did not know that at the time. So I was led down the path of a mystery illness where I then had to bring together I was an academic who did study health, but I had to finally bring all that knowledge together to go to doctor after doctor after doctor to be gaslit multiple just over and over again. A story
Mhm.
I know Emma and probably so many of your listeners know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, to eventually be able to heal myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, we're going to be talking today about EMFs. And one of the things I remember, one of the moments I remember so clearly, so vividly, was the first moment that when your body is already under stress, something that's stressful
Yeah.
can basically cause the bucket of stress to overflow. And
Mhm.
I can remember so vividly after I had been getting sicker and sicker, the first moment I realized I was severely sensitive to EMFs, realizing that, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
if I'm sensitive this right now, what is it doing to me all of the rest of the time?
Hmm.
Like, what is happening all the time? And I was laying in bed and I picked up my phone. I was in my hand, so I was holding it. I was looking at the screen, so add to it that there was blue light. But
Yep.
and literally, I just started spinning. My whole body heated up, and I just had in just severe vertigo. And so that was the first moment I realized, oh wow. And I really had, even though I had known about and been studying health for 20 years, I had never even thought about or even heard of EMF sensitivity, which really, I'm just going to put in quotes
Yeah.
sensitivity because it's impacting us all, whether we feel it or know it or not.
Right.
So,
That,
yeah, that moment, that little moment, that little micro moment was really pivotal and literally led me to this conversation because it led me down a rabbit hole of knowing and understanding this. And then for you and I to be talking about it today.
totally. And I love that you said it's like sensitivity, right? Because it's, yeah, it's affecting us all the time. It's just a matter of if we're burdened enough to be able to truly notice it or not, and how much our
Hmm.
body is having to put energy and resources towards mitigating something that maybe we're going to talk about, we can mitigate ourselves
Yeah.
in different ways. So,
Right,
and I
right,
love that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to, and just to say also, some people just have a natural propensity to being sensitive.
Yeah.
Is particularly to energies, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we think of that as I'm so sensitive, or I'm so sensitive, I can't eat this. I really think of it as a superpower. You
Yeah.
know, the canary in the coal mine. We have
Mhm.
the benefit, if you are one of those people who's been sensitive, if you've ever had something like a mold exposure or something like that, you usually stay really sensitive because
Mhm.
your cells learn that sensitivity. They learn to be sensitive. And I think it's a superpower because we have the benefit of knowing that something is harmful. And these sensitive people, if you look at like the way we would have been living in small groups, the
Mhm.
people that were sensitive kept everybody safe.
Yeah.
So really it is a superpower. So if it's something that you have experienced, someone out there listening, then
Mhm.
just know that it really is a gift if we think of it and embrace it like that, even though sometimes it feels like, wait, why is no one else feeling this, but I am.
Right. And just because you're sensitive or, you are feeling the effects doesn't mean it's not also like just because you aren't seeing the effects, like you're not like Leah and I are different, right? I'm not super sensitive, like across the board to energies, to caffeine, to like all the things. And Leah is. And so we have this conversation a lot of like my experience, like my primary experience in the world versus her primary experience in the world. Neither is right or wrong. It's just very different. And
Mhm.
how interesting it is to be able to talk to somebody and be like, oh, cool. Like I can't assume that my experience is the same as somebody else's experience. And this could lead us down a whole different conversation, which,
I one of the things I think this is super relevant for too is a lot of people with their animals,
yeah,
because their animals are just like we are, right? I mean, especially mammals, they're going to have different levels of sensitivity.
yes,
And so one might show or exhibit something, but then go to a vet and the vet isn't thinking at all about the environment.
totally.
And the other one might not exhibit it, but so that's important to think
Yeah,
about, that same thing applies to them also.
100%. And I got myself off track because all I was like, I came here to say, just because you aren't feeling the effects doesn't mean it's not impacting you. So just because
Hmm.
you might not have a symptom or you aren't having a very correlated type of symptom where it's like, oh, well, that's for sure from this thing. You're having a weird symptom or a symptom that you wouldn't think would be correlated to something else, that you're still being impacted
Absolutely. And
regardless.
yes, and
Like,
there is, you're talking about this, but there is significant science that has existed for, almost 2 decades that is demonstrating this. So we
Yeah.
know that that is the case, even if you're completely unaware of it, that you're being impacted biologically.
100%. This conversation is for literally everyone.
Yeah.
And so just if you're like, well, I this isn't for me. It is. It may not be for you right now because this isn't meant to be part of your path yet. And this still applies to everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Animal, human, all of it. So I love it. I'm so excited. Okay, so maybe where we start is what is an EMF and
Yeah.
why is it bad?
Yeah. And it's really important to know because we are, I mean, everything's electrical.
Yeah,
We are electrical.
we are on electronics for this conversation. Also,
We're on
yeah,
electronics, but literally our body
yeah.
emits EMFs. I mean, our heart is an electromagnetic field.
We
So,
emit them.
so we are ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, the sun. Okay. So the best way to distinguish this is there are native EMFs,
Hmm.
sun, moon, the Schumann resonance, which is electromagnetic frequency that comes from the earth itself. And then
Mhm.
we have ones that are literally endogenous to us, like our heart,
Yeah,
So there are native EMFs. Native EMFs are healing frequencies.
yeah.
They're healing. So EMFs, depending on which you're talking about,
Right.
can be medicine or they can be toxic. So non-native EMFs, the EMFs that we did not evolve with, the EMFs that have not existed for 99.9% of humanity,
Yeah.
and so not just us as human animals, but any kind of animals,
Whole world. Yeah.
right? Not just mammals, but obviously like birds. Birds have used the electromagnetic signaling from the earth to help guide them.
Mhm.
So it has always been there. But now, as we introduce this in this last little sliver of
Yeah.
humanity, we start to shift all of these things. Non-native EMFs are really what we're talking about when we say EMFs.
Totally. For this conversation,
Yes,
100%. Yes.
but it's important to know because
Yeah,
if
totally.
you think of it like a scale and you think right now, most people tend to be weighted down more with non-native EMFs.
100%.
But what we would like to do is shift that balance. And
Hmm.
so it's important because part of the mitigation of non-native EMFs is displacing them with medicinal native EMFs.
Yeah.
So, and we can get into that when we talk about mitigation too.
Yes. I love
So,
that so much.
when we're talking about these non-native EMFs, for purpose of the conversation, let's really focus around on more like two of them.
Yeah.
And one is electricity,
Hmm.
which is runs at 60 hertz. It runs in our walls. It runs on power cords. If you have anything plugged into a plug in your home, you are creating an electromagnetic field that runs at that 60 hertz.
Even if
So
it's just plugged in, it's not on.
even if it's plugged in, it will increase it when it's on, when you flip
Yeah.
a switch on something and turning on, but simply being plugged
Is
in and of
activating
itself
it.
already activates that and it causes it
Well,
to
I'm
move.
gonna unplug that.
I know. I
My
turned
my
on
diffuser, but it's not on. So
yes, I know. I try to turn off like, a light that sits next to my bed or something. I unplug it
yeah.
instead of just turning it off.
Ugh, okay.
So,
This
and
is
of course,
good to
power
know. Yeah.
lines themselves and then the wiring
Yeah.
within the walls
Hmm.
and so we kind of live in a little bit of a
EMF box.
just yeah, we live in a box literally just because of the electrical currents. So
Yeah.
that's one of the types that we're probably most inundated with. And then the next is radio frequency.
Yeah.
And that is phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
all of that is RF or radio frequency. And then there's like Bluetooth, which is a little bit slightly different, but that kind of falls under that radio frequency. Those are the ones that tend to impact us most. There's also a type of like dirty electricity. There's also interference that can come from the way buildings are built can
Mm.
cause bouncing
Yeah.
of of different
Amplify it basically.
amplification.
Oh,
Exactly. There's also millimeter waves. So a microwave,
okay.
that's
Yep.
a type of an EMF. So not only is it electrical, but it is using a specific type of frequency. It's plugged into the wall, so it is electrical,
Yeah.
but it also uses millimeter waves. So a microwave's the best example of that.
And
So
where does like a refrigerator stand in that?
a refrigerator would be just
Just
electrical.
electrical.
And
Okay.
you know
So
what I
all
love
other
about,
appliances are tend to be just electrical, even
yes,
an oven.
yeah, well, it depends. If it's an induction oven, it can use a different type of technology to actually heat.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So depending on what you're looking at there, you could be looking at some type of like a thermal, something that's thermal can be slightly different, but they all
Yeah.
fall under the bucket of emitting electromagnetic frequencies
Yeah. Okay.
in one way or another.
Totally.
And the things that are probably the most significant for us are power line on the outside of the of
Totally.
homes,
Yeah.
power lines, cell phone towers,
Yeah.
and on the inside of homes, anything that then accesses those,
So most things,
which is a
anything,
lot.
especially like anything plugged, like basically anything plugged in and or your cell
Anything
phone
plugged in
Wi-Fi.
or anything actively drawing power.
Yeah.
So, I'm right now I'm on
Wireless.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And that's
Totally.
actively because we're live and or if you're live on your cell phone and you actively draw the cell signal, when you're live on a call, it's going to have more EMFs than when you hang up the phone call, for
Mm,
example. So
interesting.
anything that's actively trying to draw power
Yeah.
increases the amount. And that leads me to thinking about it's kind of one of the core principles when it comes to understanding how, and then we could talk about maybe even some of the impacts of
Totally.
biologically, but some of the core principles are distance and duration. How
Mm-hmm.
close you are to an EMF and how long of an exposure you have to an EMF are
Mm-hmm.
two of the most important things of knowing if it's going to be how biologically impactful it may be. And then on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side, a correction is as much distance as you can create from it
Yeah.
and also a short duration, a short exposure versus a chronic exposure.
Yeah. So like standing in front of the microwave while it's on is like not great.
100%. And it interestingly, the there is I think the mathematical principle is called the inverse square law. So if you step half of the distance that you were away from a microwave, you actually eliminate 75% of the harmful EMFs.
Whoa.
So because of that, the farther you get,
Yeah.
the benefit is actually exponential
Wow.
because of this mathematical
Or
principle.
like sleeping, having your Wi-Fi router in your room, or like
Having your Wi-Fi router
close
in
to
your
where you're
room,
working or close to where you're sleeping,
totally,
or
or your
your
phone,
animal is sleeping or spending their day.
absolutely. Or, and we'll talk about this, we can kind of dive into this. Say your animal is wearing a collar with an air tag,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Want to talk
literally
about the tracking and like what
on
that
them,
can do
right?
or what that is. Yeah, totally.
Yes, yeah. And so it's on them. Or if we have our cell phone in our pocket
Yeah.
versus on a speaker, or if we're
Yeah.
holding it up to our face versus on speaker sitting on the counter.
Yeah.
Like it's exponentially different.
AirPods versus wired
It,
headphones or
exactly.
no headphones and it on speaker and yeah. Mm.
Yes, yes.
So many
So
things.
those are two things that are really important because they're simple, they're easy to remember, and
Yeah.
they're two of the easiest ways to
Distance
mitigate.
and duration
Yeah, just shorten duration and create more
and
distance.
create distance. Yeah. I
Yes,
love that.
yeah,
And it's
yes.
easy to do most of the time, right?
Easy to do
Just have to remember.
exactly. And hey, this is one of the things to think about with animals too, is humans have more have the choice, especially when you're talking about animals within a home,
Yeah,
right? So
100%.
animals living in a home versus say, um, a horse that might be able to make, if it's out somewhere, that
Right.
it can create more, it will naturally create more space away from a power line if it
Usually
has the ability to.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I, when we get to that point, I have something to share about that. And yes,
Okay. Yeah.
but
I
there's
want to know
choice
that.
that they're not stuck there. They
That's right.
can move,
That's
right?
right. And
100%.
humans, but it's so important to know because humans, we do have the choice to put a phone down.
Right.
And so we have to think about when we're thinking about our animals or kids,
Yeah.
our for
The ones
children or
that
not,
aren't making the choices,
that don't
whoever
have the
they may
ability to
be.
make the
Yeah,
choice. Yes,
totally.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think it's important to also say that animals are highly sensitive.
Hmm.
So and their lives tend to be not tend to be their lives are shorter. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
say tend to be because some animals live very long, right? So depending on the type of animal we're talking about, most animals' lifespans are shorter than our human lifespan, and
Hmm.
therefore things can be more concentrated and
Yes.
impact them higher than they will impact us. Also, because we have a longer duration in a different way to expel the toxicity that we are taking in.
Yes. It
And
also,
yeah,
biologically, it also makes a difference. Size makes a difference.
totally.
When
Yeah.
you have the
Also
same
size.
amount of EMFs coming into a body that is smaller.
Yeah.
So for any animal that's living in a home,
Right.
that is going to be the case. And their organs are also closer together. So
Mhm.
anyone, any size
Yeah.
always will do that. Their organs are closer together. So it's always going to be more impactful, which is true for kids too,
Yeah.
and always going to be more impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So good to know.
it
Like
is.
it this I know this can feel overwhelming because I even like was feeling that at the beginning of like, oh my gosh, like we're living in a box that's, killing us. And it's like, oh, and right, we're gonna talk about ways that we can help to mitigate it. Where
Yes.
it's not a death sentence, right? It's not the all of these things. It's when we know more, we can do something different, or we can do more. We can change. We even if we don't have the resources to go out and get or buy or purchase something, there are other things that we can do that don't cost any money
Hmm.
that will eliminate, maybe not eliminate, but will decrease our exposure, our animals' exposure to these things. And then also helps us see the world in a different way so that we can make different choices as we move forward that can benefit ourselves and our animals. Like, yes, this
Absolutely.
this this conversation, was birthed out of animals, and yet you can already hear like how it applies to us all, right? So I mean,
Yes.
my journey was always like I learned all these things about Ranger, my dog, first, and then realized, oh, it's
Oh, it
same
applies
for
to
us.
me.
Like, oh, okay, like he was my path into like human stuff. And so that might be for some of the people listening too, is your animals were the conduit into understanding yourself and your own health better. Or it might be the opposite, right? Understanding your own health helped you see, like, oh, wait, if this is impacting me, what's it doing to my dog, my cat, my rabbit, my horse,
Right.
whatever. So,
Yes. Yes. And knowing, and just like anything, just like if you're doing spiritual work, if you're doing physical work, awareness always comes first,
yep.
right? It always comes first. And if you think of health, a really simple way to talk about health and lack of health is that the rate our body's always healing. All living beings' bodies are always healing.
Yeah.
The key is we want to get the rate of healing higher than the rate of injury or harm.
Hmm.
And so if we don't have awareness of this, we can't create that balance.
Yeah.
And so, and honestly, the most impactful ways to mitigate it are all the things that are free. You
Yeah.
know, so
Totally.
yeah.
100%. Right.
So
And
this
like,
is so there is it's so hopeful to think about it in that way.
yeah. And I think it's so helpful too because it can be so easy to have these conversations and it's like, well, buy this product and buy this service and buy this thing and buy this. And it's like, oh, why is it always like we have to buy more
Right.
in order to like mitigate the things that maybe we don't even have a choice about, right? Even if like we didn't have Wi-Fi, we're still surrounded by power lines, right? Or like if
Yep.
you live in an apartment building, you can't not be surrounded by like 10 times the Wi-Fi routers because everybody has their own. And so, yeah. So anyway, I'm really excited to like talk about all the
Yes.
things and like how and what we can do to help bring ourselves, our animals back into, give ourselves the best chance to heal ourselves because our
Hmm.
bodies are know how to heal if they
Hmm.
have the ability to do so. And if they're
Yes.
not healing, well, okay, from if they're not healing from the animal side, animal communication side of me, it's either they don't have the ability to heal because it's so overloaded and there's like
Right.
the detox needs to happen, right? In order for that to then be able to come forward. And then like of course Rangers like start I don't know if you can see or hear, but he's now dreaming and
Oh,
like he's barking in his
Ranger.
sleep.
So cute.
um and from animal communication side, if your animal is not getting better and you're doing all the things, it's usually because there's a message. So I just like that
Hmm.
doesn't have to
Hmm.
do with this conversation. I just feel like I have to say it because it's not just one thing. It can be, anyway, everything's layered. So anyway, back to EMFs. Maybe like what are some of I know there can be so many, right? So like maybe like what are some of the symptoms that they
Hmm.
could cause if there even are any, because it's just like I think it can be so like specific to each body and how
Right.
it kind of presents itself. So if there's not symptoms that can be maybe like what does it do to the body?
Yes. Let's start with that because what I tend to find is where people, you and I have had this conversation before, but
Yeah.
that people have, let's say, kind of like an Achilles heel, that it might
Yeah.
be the first thing that when things start to get misaligned, it tends to be the
How it
thing.
exposes itself.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I can talk about the way that then that does that. But essentially, what happens and this biologically, most of the things biologically are going to be true for all varieties of animals, but especially for mammals, which is where a lot of the research is, humans,
Right.
is that essentially if you take the body and you think of us as already being electrical,
Hmm.
we our body communicates electrically in one of the most powerful ways it does is through calcium channels.
Mm.
These are like little all through the bodies. We have they're called voltage gated calcium channels. So just to indicate that we are electrical, right?
Yeah, totally.
Voltage gated calcium, like this is already using electricity to modulate how these things go into the body. And so they tend to break the actual gates of the voltage gated calcium channels tend to break down and flood the body with calcium, which causes missignaling in
Mm.
almost every possible way because
Yeah.
it goes into a cell and it works on a cellular level, like it's changing us on a cellular level.
Yeah.
And so some of the main things you're going to see are inflammatory cascades. And so someone might experience that as joint pain. They might experience that as dizziness. They might experience that as brain fog. So, but there are a lot of other things that fall
It
under
can literally
inflammatory
be like
cascades.
anything.
Yes,
Yeah.
because one of the other things that EMFs, non-native EMFs do is, and this is true for mammals, because this is true for all mammals, that we have what's called the blood, we have barriers. We have
Yeah.
barrier linings, including the blood-brain barrier.
Right.
And we have these linings. We have a gut lining, for example. We have all of these linings. EMFs break down those linings.
Hmm.
And so they cause disruption of the normal systems that keep things where they need to be in the body,
Which
which
is
is, of course,
important.
going to be the basic functioning, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe one way to even sum the whole thing up is that if you imagine that we have biology that was formed without any of this, And we live this way for, as humanity, 200,000 years.
Yeah.
And then in the last 120 years,
Yeah.
we have electricity as the first of this to come in. Anything we're doing that is different than what our biology expects creates energetic resistance in the body. And so it is low key stress all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. And sometimes very high load of stress,
Yeah.
but it is putting the body under chronic stress, which is nervous system activation, which is sleep disruption. I would
Mm,
say those are some of the most common.
yeah.
When you look at humans. If you add to this for animals, depending on the animal, I mean, a lot of animals they work with the Earth's electromagnetic frequency.
Right.
Dogs have a natural capacity for like knowing north and south, for example.
Right.
And so the uh especially when you look at dogs, when you look at wild things that would otherwise be in the wild or are closer to the wild,
Yeah.
horses, some of the things you're going to see are pacing
Yeah. Stress. Yeah. Totally.
and the stress things that are going to happen in stress because they can't orient themselves, literally can't orient themselves in space anymore, you
Interesting.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cellular dysfunction, inflammation, nervous system disruption, sleep disruption,
Mm,
all of which can then manifest, and the barrier disruption,
yeah.
all of which
Yeah.
can manifest in almost any symptom
Anything.
you can
Totally. I
think
mean, you
of.
add in the nervous
Yeah.
system, like that's everything.
Yes. And so for many people, the first sign that would come up is they start experiencing dizziness, unsteadiness, a feeling of just probably for most people, it starts in like the head and
Mm-hmm.
upper body,
Yeah.
just simply because of the heart or in the heart, because we're disrupting the heart's electromagnetic
Yeah.
field,
Yeah.
like some heart palpitations or something like that.
Mm.
But depending on someone's level of sensitivity, those might be
Yeah.
the first things you experience if you're highly sensitive. But if
Yeah.
you're not, it could honestly just show up in your experience later, as we
Yeah.
know, unfortunately, that this is related to causing cancer, to
Yeah.
tumors, to things like that.
Totally.
So that's what it could look like down the line for someone
Yeah.
who doesn't feel it or notice it immediately.
Which is why it feels so important to become aware of it, right?
Hmm.
Because we're not always going to get the signs and we're not always going to interpret the signs accurately to
That's
say,
right.
and even the animals, right? Because people are like, well, we could just ask them, why are you stressed out? And I will tell you from my own experience as an animal communicator, animals don't always know why
Mm-hmm.
they're sick or where they're sick necessarily, right? I think we sometimes think, oh, well, they're all knowing about themselves. And if I
Mm-hmm.
were to ask you, where are you sick? You might be like, well, I feel fine. And so
Right.
I think sometimes we have these like interesting expectations on our animals to be like, well, you need to tell me where you're sick so we can fix it, or like what's wrong with you. And
That's right.
they can't always, at least my experience, they can't always answer that question with like the science answer.
Absolutely. And we're also trained as humans, we are trained to look at the body in pieces.
Yeah.
Our entire medical system is built on that there is a different doctor for your eyes than there is for your mouth. They're
Right.
right there. They're
Totally.
right
Oh, well,
there
and then, but you
together
got to go to your general one to get a
to even
referral
get
to a
access
different
to that,
one to go. And you're
right?
like, but what?
Yes.
Mm,
And
mm,
so we're trained to want to look for a cause as we're trained to think of the symptom as the cause,
right.
when generally if we would come back to, and this works for thinking of our animals too,
Yeah.
where can I come back to, moving back and back and back to the most, to peel back the layers of what's unnatural to us,
Totally.
we can tend to correct almost everything. I
Right.
mean, and that could be spiritually most natural, being the most authentic version of ourselves, but
Right.
also physically, like our ancestral body.
Totally. And it's not always just physical, kind of what you were just
That's right.
saying, right? Like,
Yep.
I think we sometimes get so focused on, well, the body's broken. So like we just need to focus on the body. And, I'll say 5 times out of 10, right? Or more, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't actually have facts on this. But right, so many times it's actually more of an energetic misalignment that's causing a physical misalignment versus it's a physical misalignment fully, completely. And
Well,
we're
and
not thinking about all the other pieces that come into the cause, the root cause, and not just the body root cause. I know we're like kind
yeah.
of getting off
And
track,
this
but
is
like
why I think
feels important.
that's why I think EMFs in particular are rather pernicious because they are affecting us on the energetic body,
Totally.
not just on our physical being. And of course, we're all of them all the time.
Right.
The
100%.
yeah, like the Andean perspective on there's no word for body, there's no word for mind, there's no word for spirit, there's no word for cosmos. There's one word, mind, body, spirit, cosmos,
Mm,
right? And so it's all of them all the time. And that's why when I think of EMFs, I think, you know, sometimes we might be starting to have feelings or shadowy thoughts or and it could be that our energy is literally being like our energetic field, our aura is being penetrated in ways that we haven't even considered.
yeah. Which
Yeah.
like again, why we're here, right? To like have
Yeah.
this conversation to bring the awareness so that it's something that we can take into account to say, okay, maybe I've done all the other things, right?
Hmm.
That you wanted to try and things are still happening. So what is left? And then
Yeah.
you look up and you're like, oh, well, we have power lines right here, or we're right next to like an electrical station, or we
Yes.
have all these things plugged in and and running all the time, but like we're not actually using them. And like whatever the thing is, right? We have like 600 routers in our house. Like, okay, maybe we like get rid of a couple, right? Like you can start to look at, okay, what's the bigger picture?
Hmm.
Or you can start with what's the bigger picture and then work your way down. The only right way is your way. And like that is, I mean, I just released an episode today that is all about. I literally think one of the best things we can do for our animals is to be able to like tap into our own knowing, our own intuition and our connection with them and go with
Hmm.
that over what somebody's telling you because everyone's going to tell
Hmm.
you their thing's the best thing, right? my
Hmm.
my probiotics are better than everybody else's probiotics, or this vet is saying you need to do this for this thing. And it's like, okay, but if we could actually sink into what feels best for this situation and what does the animal feel about this situation and going in this direction, that's like the best thing we can do. And that's what this is all about, right? Is
Hmm.
understanding this is another component that we get to look at for the benefit of us all, right? And
Right.
in
That,
the grand
yes,
scheme of
that's
it all.
exactly what I was going to say is you just how you said, Ranger led you to be thinking about health. If you simply just take all of this and think about how you apply it to yourself, then you are already going to be addressing most of it
Totally.
for your animals as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's so important. Okay. So before we go into like the how can we go about mitigating it,
Hmm.
maybe we touch a little bit on the tracking collars
Yeah.
because I see
Yeah.
those being so prevalent these days of like putting them on our cats that are outdoor cats or putting them on our horses to like or our dogs to like see how far they go in a day. And I'm not like it is I'm a curious person, so I'm like, "Oh, I think that would be really interesting." But then I think about it from, but what are those collars emitting that is like
Hmm.
right next to their head and right
Yes.
next to their heart, and is it worth it?
That's
And
right.
I don't actually know the science behind it. This is a moment of me feeling into what feels best for us and
Hmm.
saying no and still having the other side of me that's like, but it would be so interesting, right? But it would be so interesting to put a collar on my cat and see where she goes throughout the day because I hear from different neighbors all over the place, like, oh, I saw her all the way over here. I'm like, I know she
Yeah.
moves around, but like, I don't know where she goes because she doesn't have one on. So, and I don't even know if you like know a lot about the collars
Hmm.
and how they emit. And I think I'll say too, this is probably, you tell me if this is the wrong statement to say, but they're not all created equally. So there might
Right.
be some that are way less with EMFs than others. So this is not a like general statement on them all. It's just another thing to think about if you are
Hmm.
someone who does use tracking devices or collars with your animals of whatever kind.
Yes. And the most, let's come back to the most important thing is always distance and duration.
Yeah.
So a GPS collar versus Bluetooth. Bluetooth is going to be less,
Okay.
is going to have less EMFs overall. But of course, it has limited scope of which it works, which is why many people choose the GPS ones, which are an RF, just like essentially just like the phone.
Yeah.
And so the most important thing is if you are that it is true they are your both of the principles of the most harm is
Mhm.
that it is on if it is on all the time and it is on the physical body.
Yeah.
Also the body is electrical, so anytime anything is on the body, ours or our animals, we amplify. If you're holding your phone, you're an amplifier for the EMF. So the body is electrical, it becomes an amplifier. So if you are going to use it, so to know that it is, but if
Yeah.
you are going to use it, absolutely take it off at night.
Yeah. Put it on for as
Absolutely
little amount of time as possible.
keep it on. So go back to distance and duration.
Yeah.
How can I have and the if it has to be on the body, how can I have the shortest amount of time possible? Could I do it so that I have it on for a day and then I see, okay, here's what the pattern seems to be.
Yeah.
Now I don't need to have it on for a week to
Right.
create breaks and to definitely create breaks at night because that is when the body is designed
Mhm.
while sleeping is happening, when the body's designed to repair.
Yeah. And ask yourself if you actually need if you need it or if it's more of a curiosity or a fear, right? I see that a lot, especially with outdoor cats. It's a fear that, something's going to happen or, they're not going to come back. And this, I think, not I think, this comes back to our relationship with our animals and also asking them what they want, what their choice is. So yeah,
Hmm.
maybe you have it, you put it on for a day or two, and then you ask them, how do you feel? Do you like it? Do you not like it? And let them have a choice. That's like
Yes.
the number one thing that animals will always thank me for in a session is for having the chance to share, for
Hmm.
having the chance to share in a way that can be known in a very like open and honest way, right? So there's
Hmm.
no guessing. It's like this is how I feel and you may or may not like it, but like
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
words, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of times our human fear gets the better of us and we think we're doing something good for our animal when in reality we're doing something for us and then projecting that it's a good thing for them without
Right.
actually asking them if that's what they want. So
Right. Right.
I'll just
And
put that out
and
there.
and the other thing is, of course, if as long as removing it at night, if one were to decide to use it,
Yeah.
and then counterbalancing it with as much as possible
Yeah.
in that animal's life that it is as close as possible to its nature. So it's gonna if it an effect might be different for an animal that is eating, bagged dry food than eating a raw diet,
Yeah, totally.
or
And then
just
also like
along those
depending on
lines.
what kind of bagged dry food.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, okay, just knowing and being aware of the big picture of what's happening in
Yeah.
the environment for that, for, for your animal,
Yeah.
just knowing that. I mean, this is, and for your own human animal, knowing
Totally.
what's going on big picture,
Yeah.
then you get to make your choices in addition to what Emma says about actually having communication, right, with your
Yeah.
animal and knowing and understanding that. But then you get to make choices where there are some places where it might feel like this isn't negotiable.
Mhm.
That's okay
Totally.
if you are then looking at the totality of the context.
100%, right? There's some times where they don't get to have a choice because of whatever the case may be, and that's okay too. I just like
Yeah,
to your point, it's then how do we make it the best possible experience within what we know we're already doing, right? So
yeah,
it's how do we mitigate that for us all?
yes, yes.
So maybe we talk about that. How do we
Yeah, how do we
mitigate
mitigate it? How do we mitigate it?
how do
Okay.
we make it the best situation possible knowing that,
Yes,
we're living in a electrical box that's not necessarily supporting our health. And we
that's
don't
right.
have the ability, right, to like go into the walls and put copper or, different things to like help
That's right.
a
Without,
barrier.
yes. So just to speak to that, there are a basic thing that someone can do is shielding, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of what you're talking about,
Yep.
shielding these things. Fortunately, this is starting to become more common that they actually are. I know someone who literally created a shielded wire. It should they should all just come shielded. Why do they not just come shielded? Right? So they should do that. So we're moving in that direction. We're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Then there are ways to harmonize frequencies.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, and if anyone knows you, they probably know that crystals, a lot about crystals. Crystals can harmonize.
Yeah.
And what it means is if I were to take an EMF reader and put it up to something, it may still show that there are EMFs,
Yeah.
but and that would be on the level of physics, but on quantum physics,
Yeah.
harmonization is essentially that the energies are mitigated
Yeah.
or harmonized so that they don't impact the body in the same way. And there are things like you can actually have there's a couple different companies. There's one called Lila Quantum and there's one that's FLFE that you can actually use harmonizers that are outside that use quantum physics
Mhm.
technology to be able to harmonize. Then you can actually bring those inside your home. Crystals essentially work in the same way, right? I mean, without getting into the science of it, but
Right.
they're quantum. They're
Yeah.
quantum and work in the same way. And shungite is definitely one of those too.
Hmm.
So
That's
there's
okay.
pure shielding. There is mitigating
Yeah.
through some of those other things. And I don't know if you share stuff like that in your show notes, but I know
Yeah.
you yourself have used one of the ones like the Lila Quantum and
I
where
They're the same as quantum upgrade, right? Okay. You've frozen on my side. So we're going to pause. So Leah's EMFs didn't appreciate us talking about them and kicked her off. So now she's back. Okay, you were talking about me using like one of them. Leela Quantum is same as Quantum Upgrade.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I use Quantum
Yes.
Upgrade.
Same company. Same company.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Quantum upgrade and
oh
then
yeah, okay.
FLFE is another one.
So maybe talk about kind of like
FLFE
what
is
they
another one.
do or like how
So
like yeah, how they work.
so in the beautiful thing about quantum mechanics
Yeah.
is we don't know a lot about how they work,
Yeah.
but they work. It's one of those things that they have done an enormous amount of research on, and to watch the way that biologically it changes, even though you can literally, again, put the EMF reader up to someone and the EMF reader is there. We see blood change, we see heart rate variability, which is a measure of the nervous system change and shift. So we know that they're working, but the truth is the how
Yeah.
is it we don't know exactly. Yeah,
Which is
yet.
maybe
I
why it's
suspect
something
we
I
will.
love. Yeah.
I know, right? But I
And
suspect we will soon.
I will say that so for quantum upgrade, the reason I ended up starting to use it was one, I was living in a place that had a router in one of the bedrooms that I wasn't really able to like move. And um I want and you know, my cat Sadie was going to be inside, like couldn't go outside at that place. And so was like locked inside. And it just I had this overwhelming feeling desire that like I needed to protect her from EMFs in some capacity because she's so little tiny. She's like a little tiny panther. And
Yeah.
also where my horses live, there's a power line that goes down one line of the property line, but then it also goes from a corner to the house, and that power line goes over the like paddock area that my horses are in. And so I really
Mhm.
wanted to be able to protect them because going a little bit full circle from the beginning, when you're like, the horses can move away from it, mine spends so much time in that area because it's also the barn.
Mhm.
And so it's where the other horses are overnight. And it just is like feels like a safer space for them than spending a lot of their time elsewhere away from it. Um, so that's like for me, you know, these different services you can get it for your like a bubble for a body, right? So whether it's you or one of your animals or a property or a phone, a car, you know, there's lots of different things. So yeah, so that is something that you can purchase if
Mhm.
you know, are in the position to be able to purchase something.
Yes, and that works in a similar way to the actual physical devices that someone were to bring into their home that are harmonizers,
Right.
which likely works similar to how crystals themselves work. There's one brand called Soma Vedic. There's another one, Lila. So Lila Quantum has a quantum block
Yeah.
that works in a similar way. And just know you don't have to if that's great if that's something you decide to do. The one that is purchased through the one like the one Emma is talking about has a much more affordable
Yeah.
monthly cost if you choose to do that,
Totally.
as
And
opposed
it's
to
not a
purchasing
product.
a physical thing.
Yeah.
That's right. It's literally just you essentially sending quantum energy
Yeah.
to harmonize. And they've actually done quantum upgrade did research on what they had access to, which was cattle, to
Mm,
see the way it mitigated for the cows how it actually shifted their health,
mm.
who were near power lines, and
Yeah,
they found it a significant difference.
I
So again,
bet.
we don't know or understand exactly why, in the same way we don't know or understand exactly why crystals do
Right.
their crystally
Are as
magic.
magic as they are. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
totally. Yeah.
And then so there's shielding, there's in terms of mitigation, there's shielding, there's harmonizing, and then there is basically counterbalancing
Okay.
EMFs that are non-native with as much native EMFs as possible.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that's completely free. And I think it's also probably the stuff that's the most impactful
Yeah.
ultimately. And it
Totally.
is having time outside, literally being in nature as much as possible, grounding, so feet on ground,
Yeah.
so
Bare feet on
animals
ground.
bare feet on ground. And you were talking about, for example, when Sadie was inside,
Yeah.
she didn't necessarily get access to that. So you needed to
Right.
create some mitigation for it.
Yeah. And bare feet on ground that's not full of chemicals, I feel like is important to also say.
When
You
you
know,
have to,
like
yes, if
that's
you have the
not doesn't
option to
have the
avoid them.
Roundup and the fertilizer and the weed killer and like all the like that's actually going to do more to probably worsen your health to put your bare
Especially for
feet on that
animals. Yep.
and for your animals to be on that, then
Yep.
so bare feet on clean ground
Clean earth.
feels
Yes.
feels important to say. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Sunlight, moonlight.
Mm.
So exposure
Direct,
to
not like through a window, but like
absolutely
direct.
through window. Actually, windows in the United States are specifically made to block one of the most healing uh, frequencies of sunlight.
That's
So
a bummer.
because the UV. the UV light, which is so healing, is blocked.
Yeah.
And and then so that's adding in more of that and then removing the
Yeah.
non-native as much as possible. So here's a few ways to do that, which we've already talked about. Unplug things
Yeah.
so that you stop the creation of an electromagnetic field,
Hmm.
especially things that are the closest to you or your animals.
Yeah.
Turn off your router at night.
Yeah.
Turn off if there is a way you can even, it's not safe to just flip your breaker off and turn
Oh,
and stop power coming to your house, but you can for not very expensive. I think it's called a, oh gosh, I apologize, I can't remember the name of it. It's something special, a relay. It's called a relay. You can
okay.
attach a relay, not you, an electrician, or if
Yeah.
you
A
yourself
qualified
know how to
person.
work with electricity,
Yeah.
a qualified person can attach a relay, and you could literally just flip the breaker to the room that you and your animals sleep in off at night.
Oh, interesting.
But it's not safe to do unless you have unless you have a relay, because it's made to constantly be bringing in energy, so you would have to
Yeah.
have the relay to do it. So that's an idea of how you basically can create the equivalent of like a Faraday cage
Yeah.
for your, which is where no EMFs except the native EMFs coming off the
Yeah.
body can penetrate.
Yeah.
Putting your phone in like a little Faraday bag
Mm-hmm.
overnight, or keeping it out of the room at night.
Yeah.
EMF free sleep. So night time, anything
Mhm.
that's at night, protecting from EMFs as much as possible at night, because we really have the ability to do it as much as we can do. We have that more at night because we don't need our phones on. We don't need those things plugged in. We don't need any of that. For example, when I finally learned about this, I used a noise machine I still use a noise machine, and I used one every night. I just had it sitting before I understood this.
Right.
I just sat by my head every night.
Yeah.
And you
So
put an
many
EMF
people's
meter to
phones
that stuff
like charge right next to their
right
head.
next to them, right
Yeah.
next to them. And if you put an EMF meter, that is very high. If the EMF is across the room, if it's across the room and plugged in, on the other hand, at night,
Yeah.
I am not exposed to 99% of the EMFs that are generated from it.
And also, like, this is where you can start to like put things together, right? So, okay, you need to have your phone. Like, for me, I have to have my phone. I mean, I guess I don't have to, but for my own peace of mind, I have to have my phone in my room just in case
Mhm.
something happens with my horses and, I need to get the phone call or the text at night or whatever to say something's up. So I will have my phone, as far away from me
Yes,
and my animals sleeping as possible, and yet still in my room. And I have crystals next to like all of my plugs in my room and all of
yes,
the routers and everything to help mitigate what is happening around that area. And that's a lower cost option than getting, the Lila quantum block, which would for sure protect the whole house and, is going to cost more than the crystals that I have.
that's right.
So there's
Yes,
lots of
yes.
different ways you can go about it. And it's also why I think so a little bit going back just a second. Oh, it's 11:11. That animals can sometimes have less symptoms, or, it may not affect them quite as much. It really depends. And I'm saying all this with like a huge caveat, but because a lot of times they are going outside and their feet are not covered. And so they are
Mhm.
able to connect to the Schumann's
Stay
resonance and
grounded.
able to get the energy from the ground. Now, if your ground, there's so many caveats with that, right? If your ground is saturated with a bunch of chemicals, like that's unhelpful. If your land
Mhm.
is very unhappy, is not going to give you as much healing energy as well. Like, we could go into all the different kinds of aspects of those things that we can do to like help amplify the healing energy and
Mhm.
all the things. And it doesn't mean it's not still impacting them. And then to your point of the depending on how big or small their body is, it's going to, impact them more. So yeah, there's some like built-in mitigation for them already, depending on where they're walking. And they're still getting it more than we get it. So it's, kind of a wash a little bit. And
That's
that's
right.
like, there's
That's
still
right.
more for us to do to help them than just the walk outside.
Absolutely. Yes. And to that point, the more
things that you can align, I said this already, but it is probably the most important mitigation strategy,
Yeah.
which is the more things you can align with their natural state of
Mhm.
being, not having chemicals in the home, not sleeping with fragrance,
Yeah.
eating food that is, the cleanest possible food for them, having clean water, as much as you can align those other things over which you also have control,
Yeah.
it helps to mitigate that because it will weigh it toward rate of repair because the body wants to move into a state of healing.
Totally. Totally. And I mean, then you also, we need to wrap this because we could keep going for so long, but I think we've already been here for an hour. So I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Um, but then you can also go into like the cellular part of it, right? Since you had said EMFs are going to really essentially attack the cells, then there's also things we can do to help support cell health at the same time as
Mm-hmm.
reducing EMF exposure. And so there's so many, I think again, I don't want to overwhelm anybody of like, well, I got to do all these like things and I got to learn about these things. And it's more, there's so many ways that we can approach it and we don't need to approach it in all of the ways all at once. It's approach it in the way that feels best to you now and feels the most attainable and
Mm-hmm.
not overwhelming. And then allow that to then cascade to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, if there is a next thing and a next thing and a next thing. And that you doing one thing, which might be, adding crystals to your room, could be like the best thing that you could do, right? If you already have some, just like bring, switch them out or bring some different ones or, whatever the thing is. Like there's more we
Right.
can do with what we already have. And it doesn't have to be all in on something and there's so many different ways to attack kind of like the same issue or whatever problem, and there's not just one way. Like yes, you can
Yes,
attack EMF
absolutely.
from the EMF and you can also do it from the cell, like there's not one way. I mean, I guess that's like my whole
That's
mantra
right.
in life.
That's
It's like
right.
there's not one way.
Absolutely.
So
There is not one way. And it
yeah,
just depends on whether it is simpler for you to remove or to add.
yeah,
People have
totally.
different philosophies on whether taking something away is easier or adding
Yeah,
something in is easier.
100%.
And just if you don't even know where to start just based on this conversation, if you already have a house where you have things plugged in and you have a router, all you have to do is unplug those at night.
Yep.
That is a super easy thing that costs absolutely nothing and doesn't require adding anything different.
Right.
And then I would say be outside as much as possible.
Totally.
I would add to that,
In clean nature.
in
And let's clean up our
yes,
nature also.
in nature.
So we
Right,
don't have
right.
to have that caveat. And, which is sad that we do. Um,
Yeah. But just remembering, we are electrical beings
yeah,
and we have the ability to use our electrical nature to be medicine for us.
yeah,
And the body speaks the language of electricity, which is why non native EMFs do impact us so strongly.
right.
So just think of trying to weight more toward returning medicinal electromagnetic frequencies and reducing non native
Yeah,
ones.
I love it. Oh, this is so good. Thank you so much, Lea. I know this isn't meant to be like the full conversation of this, right? Like this is just the beginning of this whole topic and all the different things we can do and going into it and all of it. And I just like thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this with us because it feels so important because it's not something we think about until we think about it, right? It's not
That's
something
right.
that a lot of people are talking about. And so if we can start to bring different topics to people, then, more people are going to think about it. And then, maybe pause the next time that they decide to do something because it's like, oh, wait, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect my animal? And is it worth it in the end? So
That's right.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I
Thank
want to ask
you.
you, what is a lesson an animal has taught you?
I love this question.
Mhm.
And I think what's coming to mind, and I have a deck in front of me, and on the cover of the deck is a deer. And I'm
Yeah.
reminded of these two deer just this past week. Two deer came to my backyard. They were eating out of my feeder.
Yeah.
And just watching, just seeing and observing them. And then I went and looked at the, read the card that was related to it. But what really resonated with me was gentleness.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be gentle with myself,
Yeah.
just in, and not to be judgmental of self, but really just to, how can I just be gentler
Yeah.
with and on myself, not just my body, but mind, body, spirit, cosmos.
Cosmos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And such a great reminder too in this 9 year that we are wrapping, that is like such a good reminder for all of us, right? Is bringing in that gentleness. The card that I pulled last night for collective was the stingray from the animal power deck, which was, it said like bring in gentle and calm or something along those lines. So I love that. That's that message
Oh,
again,
perfect.
again.
Yes.
Something about peace and calm, I think. So anyway,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
Well, thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to connect, the best place is Instagram, and I am at Lea, Lea dot rewild, Rewild, as in come on back to being the wild beings that we are meant to be. Lea dot rewild.
I will put it in the show notes and I will do my best to put all the different products and things that you mentioned too in the show notes for people to look at. Um, I might
That's
forget or
perfect.
I might miss one or two, but anyway, all right. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you. And uh yeah, all right. That's it. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you.